Bonjour tout le monde, bienvenue au podcast Au-delà des plans, le podcast de la construction. Chaque semaine, j'ai l'opportunité de rencontrer un entrepreneur issu du milieu de la construction qui nous parle de son parcours et de son histoire. Tout d'abord, j'aimerais remercier mes commanditaires Lajoie, qui est un agent manufacturier en équipement de plomberie. Donc, pour vos projets résidentiels, commerciaux, institutionnels, n'hésitez pas à les appeler. Ils vont faire les spécifications. J'aimerais également remercier Watts et Delta, qui sont des manufacturiers représentés par Lajoie. Donc, pour de la robinetterie, des drains, des PRV, des DAR, n'hésitez pas à appeler Lajoie. Et j'aimerais remercier Bugatti qui nous permet d'offrir des super cadeaux à nos invités. Cette semaine, j'ai eu l'immense plaisir de rencontrer Ben et Sherry-Ann de Levine Plomberie. Donc sur ce, je vous souhaite bon podcast. Vous écoutez Au-delà des plans avec Bruno Rajotte. Le podcast de la construction. Salut Ben, bienvenue au podcast.
Hey, merci pour m'avoir.
Merci beaucoup. On va avertir tout le monde. C'est mon premier podcast français-anglais. Ben plus confortable en anglais. Moi plus confortable en français. On va switcher d'un bord à l'autre. Fait que,
oui, et des fois, j'oublie des mots en anglais en plus de ça. Alors, je switch en français.
Exact.
Et du côté de Plomberie, je suis bien à l'aise de me parler, exact. Mais en même temps, en français, j'avais enseigné des plombiers sur la route, alors peut-être c'est pas toujours comfortable for everyone to listen to the words I use, so I'm much better, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to have your first Fringlish podcast.
Oui, ben merci beaucoup. Puis l'autre chose, là, tout de suite, quand que j'ai annoncé que tu venais au podcast, tout le monde était comme « Oh, Ben de TikTok! » Parce que tu fais, tu sais, quand Tony puis Fred m'ont présenté à toi, c'était, ben là, tout le monde connaît Ben. Il fait des TikTok, il y a je sais plus combien de followers dessus. Je suis comme fait « Oh, wow! Ça, c'est cool parce que les plombiers, le marketing de la plomberie, on va avoir le temps d'en parler dans la deuxième partie de l'entrevue quand Sherry-Ann va venir se joindre à nous, mais ça n'existe pas, là.
No, just talking about the trade as a whole and talking about plumbing and demystifying the world of plumbing. No, people don't do it. And I got a lot of backlash at first. So, yeah, we're going to get into that.
Yeah, exactly. On va aller d'un bord puis de l'autre, Ben, je te l'ai dit.
And it took on a life of its own and a messaging of its own. And I'm really proud of where we are right now with that.
Ouais. Mais là, on va commencer. Je commence tous les podcasts avec... Je te laisse te présenter Ben Levine de Levine Bro Plumbing. Fait que... quel âge les enfants, la femme? Yeah, I know.
All right.
On passe ça.
So, I'm Ben Levine from Levine Brothers Plumbing. I've been in the business now. I mean, I'm fourth generation in the company. So, I've been in the business now for 19 years. But behind me, I've been married now 14 years.
Yeah, don't forget the date. She will be with us on the second part.
So, on June 14th, it's 14 years, so that's pretty exciting. We have 3 kids, a 12-year-old daughter who's graduating elementary school very shortly, a 9-year-old son, and a 5-year-old daughter who's going into kindergarten in September. So
wow.
Lots of graduations. It's a busy household and a lot of fun, and it's that part of it really interesting. When I had my first kid, I was an apprentice on the road, and the plumber I was working with, Francis, he said to me that first day I was back, he looked at me and said, now you have a different purpose to work. Right. And that really stuck with me, so that's kind of cool. A little bit more about me, some fun facts.
T'as quel âge, Ben?
Oh, I'm 41. Okay. Although the gray hair might say otherwise.
That's why I'm shaving everything, because I don't want gray hair.
Perfect. I get mistaken a lot for a little bit older, but I'm hoping to take it as a compliment that I'm very serious in what I do when I've established myself, so people feel that I'm older and more experienced in the trade than I really am. I'm 41 years old. I graduated Concordia University, John Molson School of Business in 2004 with a BCom in economics.
Ça, faut que tu me l'expliques, Ben. Parce que t'es plombier,
Yep.
mais j'ai très peu de plombiers qui ont des baccalauréats en business management.
So it's
Yeah, en fait, t'es le seul, juste comme ça. Il
No,
n'y a pas beaucoup de gens. Là, y a pas beaucoup
no,
de...
there isn't, and it's interesting because going back generation, my father has a engineering degree in mechanical engineering. He's an mechanical engineer by schooling. My uncle had got a business degree also from Concordia in 1971, and now my brother-in-law, who's my partner, he's electrical engineer by trade, and I have a business degree. But one of the things that happened, I decided to go into the company, and it wasn't always like that. I didn't always want to have that in my future. When I remember very clearly grade 11 career day, I wanted to be a physio. I wanted to go into sports therapy. I love to play sports, and I played with such a reckless abandon that I always hurt myself. So I'd twist an ankle, I'd sprain a shoulder, I Saturday afternoons, my buddies and I, we'd be playing tackle football, no equipment, or we'd be playing ultimate frisbee, and I'd be the guy who dove into the thorn bush. But it didn't matter because I caught the frisbee. That was the important part. So I was picking thorns out of my ribs for the next week. But so to me, I was always hurting myself. And part of who I am and where I came from is I love to help people. I figured I'd put the two together and I'd go into physiotherapy. Well, it didn't really work out that way. And something I want to clarify is that I know there's a lot of family businesses out there that the next generation gets pressured in. Okay, if you don't go in, we're gonna lose the company in our family. That was never the case. My dad always said, you want to come in, know that the company is there for you. You don't want to come in, follow your path, do what makes you happy and where you should be. Make that decision up. So when I went in, and I know how fortunate I am to have had that, because that is not the experience of a lot of family businesses.
Non, il y a énormément de familles qui... Ah oui, tu sais, j'ai des gens qui viennent dans... Tu sais, je connais plusieurs familles, là. Tu sais, votre entreprise a 100 ans, il y en a d'autres, là, puis je le sais que c'est beaucoup. Puis l'autre chose, c'est quand que les... Tu sais, parce que ce thinking-là, quand tu l'amènes dans la business, c'est beaucoup de pression pour reprendre la business, mais peut-être que tu n'as pas d'intérêt à... Tu sais, business-wise, tu n'as peut-être pas d'intérêt. Là, tu as clairement un intérêt parce que tu as fait un business management, mais est-ce que la décision de venir dans la business était avant le business management, le bac en...
It actually happened in CEGEP. So I was doing all these science courses, and...
To go in physio?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then I hit biology and I hit chemistry and I hit physics and realized this is not me. I was struggling through. I don't like to learn. And it's something I've learned about myself is how I like to learn. I didn't realize it at the time. I like an understanding of learning. I hate memorizing. When you're going into sciences, it's all memorizing. It's biology. What's the genius? And I couldn't do it. Chemistry, it's what's the molecular makeup of, I had so much trouble. I struggled through it right up until I took a business course, and everything just clicked. It felt so natural. I felt that I was learning, to get better, to not for the degree and not for marks but I was learning to learn, and it was a different thirst after that. I got a thirst for learning, which is, really goes back even in high school. I always enjoyed learning. I never cared as much about the marks. Really upset my mother. Yeah. Really upset my teachers who I was engaged in class and I was part of the conversations, and I knew what was going on, and then I'd get my test back and I'd get a 72. And they're like, "You're better than this." I said, "Okay, thanks. I know. I got this." And then it was really when I hit CEGEP and I got into those business courses, and that's when everything clicked. And I had a conversation with my father, and he said, "I have no problem you coming into the business. Remember I said that, but you need to get a university degree."
Wow! Ça, c'est un big commitment, là, de dire, il te faut ça. Puis pourquoi qu'il voulait ça, ton père?
In the same way, I know a lot of athletes, if they're going to college in the States, it's the one thing that they are promising their parents is that they'll get their degree. Because to show that there's options open after, if maybe business wasn't for me, or maybe Levine Brothers wasn't for me, and then I would have left after CEGEP, and then what? Then I would have had to go back to school, and it's much more difficult at the time.
Going back to school at like 35, that's
tough.
I got a couple of friends who did this, and it's like with kids, it's really crazy. The schedule, we think that our schedule is complicated with studying, having a job during weekends, and having kid. It's really crazy.
Even I agree. Just studying for my master's exams while I had kids, I was like 2 weeks. I didn't surface. It was anyway. So it was never out of my mind getting a university degree. It was always part of it. But then once everything clicked for me in school, every project. So I went into all different kinds of courses, and I only took economics just because I love working with equations. It was just what I like to do. It was fun.
Si c'est pas comme un... Si tu sais, des fois, il y en a, il dit, si c'est pas difficile, tu sais, quand c'est naturel, quand t'as ça naturel, quand t'as le côté business dessus, moi, mon père, il en fait. Mon père me dit, va pas en business parce que t'as ça. T'as ça dans le sang. Va chercher autre chose, puis ça va te donner une autre option pour partir la business. C'est là que j'ai fait engineering.
Exactly. So you're able to use the engineering part for the business, not to go into business.
Exactly.
And that was really the mentality. So every group project at university I did was either small business, family business, succession plans. So I focused myself over those 3 years in university, and it was fun.
C'était pas des devoirs, Ben. T'étais en formation.
I was training, exactly.
T'étais en formation pour aller chercher. T'as sauvé beaucoup de temps d'avocat et de notaire pour faire la transition. C'est ça que t'as fait.
On the other hand, an interesting dynamic that happened when I started, not long after I graduated, I had knee surgery, and I did my last summer in camp. I'll get to my work experience and what I learned from those shortly, but I started, and all I was doing was walking around talking about change. I'm like, okay, so we need to do this, and we need to communicate better, and we need to put a system in place for this. And one day, it was not long after I had started, and I was working in the office. At the time, I was in the stock room restocking, and my uncle had called me into his office, and he said, "You need to stop." I'm like, "What are you stop what?" You literally just called me from the back. I was putting the material away that came from the supplier. Stop what? He's like, "You're talking about change. You came out of school. You have 0 years of experience. You have absolutely no idea about the company." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I grew up in the company. From 8 years old, I was working." He's like, "No. You came in as a kid. You were there, you helped out, but now you're in the company. Learn the company. Keep your mouth shut, your eyes and ears open. Learn what we do, why we do it, and when it's your turn, you could change it." What you're doing is, people are naturally scared of change, whether it's for the better or the worst. This is a pretty severe lesson early on in my career. And then he said, and second of all, you're telling people that they're not doing their jobs right. You're telling people that they should be working in a different way. And honestly, you're discrediting yourself because they see you with zero experience. You know nothing about what's going on. And all that's happening is they're getting upset at you.
Wow!
Yeah.
C'était comme une belle leçon de vie court. Puis, qu'est-ce qui est le fun quand c'est un parent qui le dit? C'est... parce que il vient pas mal. Il dit pas ça fâché, il dit juste... Si tu veux que ça aille bien, là, fais par expérience. Puis surtout, peut-être ton oncle, lui, il avait pas fait ça, puis il a mangé. Ça a été difficile pour lui, l'intégration.
It's possible. And it was, I had worked in the company from the time I was 7, 8 years old. I was coming in and I was helping some of the plumbers go on service calls. We actually still have a plumber, Nick, who's been with us for, it'll be 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I was 1 when he started with us.
Exactly.
So he remembers me, but he taught me my tools. He taught me what a Westcott was, how to adjust it, and how to hand tools over to the plumber. It's taught me how to think like a serviceman. And so I was always there. I mean, my one of the big projects that I'm going to be talking about, but we talked about the verglas. The verglas was in Secondaire 5, and I was working throughout the whole thing, and it was such an amazing experience. And I even learned to drive in a truck during that time. Although, if you're from my insurance company, you didn't hear me say that.
Non, mais mon père aussi. Durant le verglas, mon père est contracteur électricien. On était à Montréal.
Oh, yeah.
On partait à 6 heures pour les premiers calls, puis on finissait quand les gens arrêtaient de sortir dans la rue. « Hey, we need help, we need help. » C'est là qu'on arrête. Puis là, on retournait à la maison. Le lendemain, on revenait. Puis là, je disais à mon père, on s'en va où? On va aller dans une rue, les gens vont arrêter.
Wow!
C'est comme ça. Puis on a travaillé pendant 3 semaines, comme ça, avec... puis là, un moment donné, moi, j'avais 14-15 ans, peut-être, à ce moment-là. Fait que là, mon père faisait le kid rotation. Fait que là, moi, je faisais 2 jours. Là, mon frère embarquait avec mon père 2 jours. Puis là, c'est comme ça qu'on roulait. Mais c'était des belles années. Puis c'est là aussi que j'ai commencé. Mon père dit, change le truck de place. Là, papa, j'ai pas conduit. Il n'y a pas de police. Puis à la limite, si tu frappes un auto, il y a un arbre sur l'auto déjà.
Fait que
ça fait partie des essais. Là.
I had one plumber throw the keys at me. I said, but I only have my learner's permit. He said, what are they going to do? It's your name on the side of the truck anyway.
Exact. Yeah. Exact. Mais là, Ben, il y a une chose qui m'intrigue. Parce que là, tu sais, t'as un bac en business management, mais t'as-tu suivi des cours de plomberie ou t'as appris, tu sais, comme on the field?
So, according to the CCQ...
Okay.
You ready for this one?
That's the legal...
No, let's start there. According to the CCQ, a company is allowed to have 2 different categories that don't need to go to school. So I actually never got a DVP in plumbing, even though I asked and would have liked one. I was told that I didn't need one legally because one of them is a company representative. So my beau-frère, Jacob, he started a year before me, and he was director of the company on paper, so he was able to get his apprenticeship cards that way. And me, it was enfant d'employeur.
Okay.
Or back in the day, it used to be called fils de boss.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was able to get my cards that way. And I'll never forget, I was on a chantier, and the inspector came, and everybody showed their cards. And the enfant d'employeur, you're stuck with the company that you're connected with, but it's also with different color cards. So after that, everybody knew, and everyone on the chantier.
Like
and after that, they just kept calling me fils. Hey, fils. I'm like, okay. Which just means I needed to work harder, and that was always my mentality. So no, I did not go to plumbing school.
But you learned a lot.
But I've learned from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I used to work spring breaks, winter breaks, Growing up,
when you got free time, free time with a contractor that's mean that that's free time mean you will work for him.
Exactly. And then really once I hit CEGEP, and I don't know, I have no idea if it's still the same, but winter breaks is 6 weeks for CEGEP.
So you worked there?
So I worked 6 weeks, and I was in CEGEP for 3 years because I switched into business, so I had to prolong my experience. But so that's where I got the experience. And then I went on, and they gave me onto a job site that the plumber, I remember the address even, but anyway, the plumber had kicked off 4 other apprentices already. So, let's give him the guy who hasn't used a power drill but has all his own tools. Oh, great. So I went there, and he asked me to do things. And, oh, by the way, I had knee surgery right before that summer. I didn't tell anybody in the company. My father knew, but okay. So by September, I had my ASP cards, and then I had my apprenticeship cards. I went straight onto a shanty. We were replacing a whole boiler room, heating and hot water. By the time I got on, everything was functional from the hot water side, but we still needed to finish the job up. The gas pipe needed to be painted. So my first job to do, it was 20 feet in the air on top of all of the heating pipes on the indirect tanks. He said, go paint those pipes. I said, okay. I didn't know that there was he had kicked the last guy off because he told him to go do it. And the guy said, no. I didn't even know that was an option. It actually, first of all, it isn't, because, your plumber tells you to do something. And second of all, I needed it to not be an option for me so I could show them what I was made of. So I took a piece of pink insulation, I PL'd it onto a plywood, and I threw it on top of those welded heating pipes on top. And I was kneeling on my knees for probably the first week. Every night I'd go home and my knee was gonfled, and I'd ice it down, and I didn't say a word until after. Oh yeah, Advil. I was the whole thing. I didn't say a word. I told them when the job was done. And by the way, that job was in a magazine after.
Wow.
That's how well I painted those pipes.
Wow.
And at the end, he said to me, he's like, everybody else refused to do what you did. I said, I didn't know that was an option. And I said, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but I'm fresh off knee surgery. He said, I had no idea. Good. I said, good. That was my job. And
Ça a dû te donner beaucoup de respect par rapport au gars. Puis si le gars, souvent, mon père me disait tout le temps, quand j'avais commencé chez Molson, il dit, le gars qui chiale le plus, là, lui, va travailler avec lui. Avec tous les autres, après, ça va être facile.
Yes.
Mais lui, là, fait que là, je prenais le gars, le bougon là, de la maintenance. Là. Puis je passais des 12 heures avec lui. Puis un moment donné, il dit, j'ai une question pour toi, Bruno. T'es pas tanné? Il dit, hey man, je te dis des affaires, là. Tu sais, je me souviens, Marc, là, il était comme, on sait bien, toi, il y a quelqu'un qui t'a backé pour rentrer chez Molson, parce que chez Molson, c'était avec les connexions qu'on pouvait rentrer. Okay. Puis là, je dis, oui, un tel, mais je dis, je veux juste te montrer une chose, par contre. Moi, je suis là pour t'aider. Fait que, puis là, le gars, ça a pris 3 semaines. Puis là, Mané, le gars, il dit, bon, fait que là, ta formation est finie, tu peux aller travailler avec les autres, ça va être tellement facile. Mais ce gars-là, encore aujourd'hui, ça fait 22 ans, 23 ans que j'ai travaillé avec Marc. Puis lui, on se voit encore, puis on s'écrit encore à toutes les semaines pour comment ça va, les choses. Mais tu sais, ce gars-là, à vie. Mais c'était la meilleure école. Là.
Yeah, and you earned it.
Ouais.
Yeah, wasn't handed to you, wasn't. And for me, that was one of my important parts of coming in, to make sure that just because my last name is Levine doesn't mean anything. It means I'm an apprentice coming in. Yes, it means you're training me. And then I had these conversations with the plumber I was working with. His name is Bobby. And he said, it's not that I'm treating you differently. It's you're learning differently than any other apprentice. You're learning to build for you so you could bring it to the company. He said, yeah. it's a different motivation. He said, I could see it. That was a nice compliment.
Mais tu sais, Ben, la route, là, tu sais, quand tu regardes les gens avec qui tu étais à l'université, ils ont des business degrees à l'université, eux autres, ils sortent, ils s'en vont dans les bureaux au centre-ville. Toi, t'es rentré, ils t'ont donné un pot d'outils, puis tu dis, tu vois le plombier, tu vas aller travailler avec. Enfin, il faut que tu mettes l'ego de côté, là.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, without question. And even when I was younger, CEGEP, university, every time I'd come in, my father made a point of seeing the plumber that I was working with that day. And he said, he's like, went right up into his face. And my dad's not a confrontational guy. He said, you leave these doors? He's not my son. He's your apprentice. You make him work. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, they took it to heart, and I took that to heart.
I think that's the better school that you can go. That's better than going to a DEP, where you think you know how to work. You know how to weld, you know how to install our tank, you know how to install the drain.
In a classroom.
Yeah, in a classroom. With
Ideal situation.
Yeah, better condition than you never see on the field. Mais ça, puis à quel moment, tu sais, parce que veux pas, tu passes dans l'entreprise où ce que t'apprends le côté plombier, tout ça, mais tu sais, vraiment, là, c'est plus sérieux que quand t'étais enfant, là.
Yeah.
À quel moment tu dis, parfait, je veux devenir propriétaire de la business?
Ooh, je veux.
No, yeah.
That was, hold on. That was the switch in CEGEP. In CEGEP, I'm like, I'm going into the business to take over.
Wow.
That was the mindset.
Parce que t'avais quoi, 18 ans peut-être? 17, 18 ans?
Yeah.
Wow. Big commitment.
Oh, everything about it felt right. It was right. Was I ready?
No. Ça,
I mean, so there are days I still don't feel ready.
yeah. Puis à quel moment dans la business, je pense en 2004 que tu es rentré comme actionnaire partner dans la business?
2004 is when I graduated university. I came in, it was 2008.
2008?
2008. Interesting part of that. I was an apprentice still. I was myself, my brother-in-law, and we had one other partner come in at the same time. And what happened was the other partner, he was a plumbing expert for insurance companies, law firms. We had a whole division that we did reports for insurance claims. S'il y a un désastre, they brought us in. What happened, why, and who could we blame? That was pretty much it.
You were like the expert.
Exactly. We were brought in, plumbing expert. My former partner, but at the time, he's deemed an expert by the courts of Quebec. And there was a point that we were producing anywhere from 400 to 500 dossiers a year, with each one of them ready to be presented in court. Each one. Couldn't make a mistake. So it was a point in time that there were companies that were coming to see him to poach him, to come into their company they were offering him shares. And so that was when my father and uncle sat down and decided, like I had said, I was still an apprentice. My brother-in-law was just past his plumbing cards, and they wanted to help guarantee the future. The ownership and leadership group needs to have a deeper, higher understanding of plumbing to begin with, so you could guide the plumbers on the road. Can't have a fourth-year apprentice telling a plumber of 30 years how to do things the right way. So it was a great move, is that they locked us all in, the three of us in together. We bought into the company, the three of us at the same time, in 2008. It was a year before I got married. I
got kid.
And before any of that, it was good timing from the personal side, but it was so young in my professional career that I didn't fully understand what it meant and what it should change. And the other side to it is I don't think my father and uncle did either. They were just doing it to secure the future, which right way to go right way to go about it. But they missed some of the process procedure side of things that would come back a little bit later to be harder for us.
Comme quoi?
We were brought in none at the time, and then after, when we got past the operations of the company, we didn't have set roles and responsibilities. At one point, my father named me president, but that didn't change anything. It was the three of us we had a consultant come in at one point, and he said, "You guys are like a three-headed monster, and you don't have one person who is stepping up." And he looked at me and said, "I know who should be, but you're not. You're three people running the company, making decisions together about what one president should be doing." That
was like
that's
a
why
big statement.
But that's why you bring a consultant in at the same time.
But tu sais, on dit tout le temps, oui, on amène un consultant pour qu'il nous dise les vraies choses, mais aussi, faut être capable de mettre l'ego de côté pour prendre ses commentaires puis ses advice pour faire avancer
Oh, here's the problem, though. We didn't listen to him.
C'est cool parce que c'était facile. Il l'avait déjà dit. C'est quoi qui est arrivé?
So this was really early on. I think this is maybe 2009, 2010. And he was a client of ours. And he actually, right after he finished the report, and we were ready to really dive in and get involved, because I didn't fully know how to go about it. I was running the company and running the operations. I was service manager, so I'd help guide the service department. And at one point, I was brought in off the road as a project manager because one of our project managers was going to be retiring. But I didn't know what the company needed from a president. So he gave the report. We were ready to go. We were supposed to start the following week. Over the weekend, he tragically passed away. It was a traffic accident on the Met, and he got merged into by an 18-wheeler, and somehow he got thrown from the car, or he thought he would be jumping to safety, and
He was hit by another
car. Safety nets for construction were not there, and he fell to the auto route below, about 30 feet. So it was actually it was hard to go. I went to meet his family after, because he gave me so much espoir that we were going to go faster to where we need to go. And I had trouble explaining. I mean, here's his relatively young. He was in his mid-50s at the time. He had a teenage son. And so how do I tell this wife that his passing is really hurting me? I'm like, I'm sorry for your loss. But it went into, I almost went back into the comfort zone. Comfort for me at the time was the three of us making decisions together. And we stayed that way for a long time.
Too long?
Yes. In retrospect, yes, too long. Only at the time, but it was comfortable. I was a project manager, and then I was leading the project managers, and I was working so hard to run the business how my father would want me to. And I now that I look back, it almost felt like I was spinning my wheels. And my father kept saying, and maybe this was his way of saying, wake up, we need you to be what you're supposed to be. But he said, we're missing a glue. That was the words he used. We're missing glue here.
Fait que ouais, c'est... ça a pris combien de temps avant que là, vous preniez le right decision?
It's actually been now 5 years. So, I mean, it was probably about 8 years from the passing. So it's 2018, I guess, at this point.
Okay.
And what ended up happening was there was an incident that happened with a client of ours. And there was a misunderstanding, complete misunderstanding, and he was one of our larger clients. And before he was able to fully dive in and do his due diligence and understand what happened, his first step was to tell everyone to stop using us. Okay, until further notice. The next day, I had 6 trucks parked at home. Took about a week to clear things up. Turns out that it was very much a misunderstanding, and this is now about 5.5 years ago. And it was during that week that I realized I need to work just a little bit differently within the company. We were at that point, there was no business development plan in place. There was no such thing as business development. There was no true marketing plan, even though I started our Facebook page. I started posting myself in 2015. I'm pretty sure we'll get into that, the marketing side of it. But there was no true marketing concept. And then networking was, in my father's mind, my father has always been active in the community, Jewish community, Montreal community. He was always involved in different organizations, and that was his networking. It always worked. He would meet people, and he'd say at these events, he was always more popular than a doctor. People would come up, ask his advice, and he would call them on Monday morning, and that's how we got new clients. His form of networking, community involvement, but there was never a plan in place. And it was that week that I, sitting down with my wife, and really, everybody knows, you should diversify your portfolio. Don't put your eggs all in one basket. On the other hand, when you have someone who asks you, hey, I have this building, could you do this project? Yeah, I got it. Okay, I have this building, I need this boiler replaced. I got it. I have this one. Can you handle this renovation? Yeah, we'll figure it out. But yes, we got it. And now all of a sudden, he becomes a huge part of your income, and you're working to keep him satisfied or keep his company satisfied on all different levels. You should diversify, but at the same time, you have business coming in and you don't want another company going in and serving your client. It was a hard shift for me. But then I got invited. I had someone reach out and say, hey, would you like to come to a referral networking group? I'm like, yes, that is exactly what I'm looking for. I am looking to diversify my portfolio. So I went to one meeting, went to 2 meetings, and I'm like, this is where I need to be for the company. And then within 2 weeks of that, there was a business coach, a personal business coach, so a mindset coach in the group. And I had my first meeting with him. And he had this whole program based on Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And it was a 6-month program based on that one book. And my first meeting with him, it was the most money I had signed and committed over for something that was not a project. $5,000 I signed right there, right then, and I was nervous as hell. But that is what led me on my path. And that's what helped me.
C'est sûr. Tu sais, moi, je le répète, puis toutes les compagnies de plombiers, de tous les contracteurs, leur plus gros défaut, c'est le business development. Tout le monde pense que ils font ça bien. Il y a environ 3% des contracteurs qui font du vrai business development.
Wow.
C'est très peu. Puis là, il dit, ouais, non, mais lui, il va être content, Sauf que, tu sais, quand on grossit, tu sais, un peu qu'est-ce que tu as vécu quand que le client a dit, on arrête tout. Tu sais, en une semaine, 6 trucks parkés, 12 gars à la maison, puis là, c'est des bons gars, parce que tu mettais tes top guys dessus, puis là, tu fais, OK, je fais quoi? Ouais, c'est ça. Puis ça, c'est très difficile, tu sais. Il y a eu, j'en ai déjà parlé, l'expérience New Balance, qu'eux, ils avaient produit un soulier, puis c'était le soulier, il y avait comme 100 modèles de chaussures, mais il y en avait un qui représentait 30% des ventes de la compagnie.
Oh, wow.
Et pendant 2 ans, là, ils se vendaient mieux que les Nike Jordan. Puis, il y a eu une année que tout a arrêté. Mais tout a arrêté, Ben. Là. Ça l'a même pas représenté 0,01% des ventes cette année-là. Wow. Mais ils avaient produit pour 30%. La compagnie a passé très, très proche de fermer. Ils ont réussi à spinner ça, à les vendre dans d'autres pays, des liquidations, mais la compagnie s'est promis qu'elle ne plus jamais à faire ça. Puis nous, chez La Joie, on fait ça. Dès qu'il y a un brand qui prend trop d'importance, on a des décisions à prendre. Soit que on rentre un autre brand majeur pour nous aider à diluer ce brand-là pour qu'il soit plus petit qu'un pourcentage. Mais, tu sais, on a eu... il y a l'histoire de Jean-Pierre Sylvain, agent Jean-Pierre Sylvain, que Masco Delta représentait... ouais, non, mais c'est Delta, là, mais c'est quand même... C'était c'était d'une tristesse, là, parce que quand Delta, Masco ont décidé de quitter l'entreprise... Ils n'ont pas eu le choix de... Jean-Christian, il n'a pas eu le choix de mettre à la pied plein de gens. Yeah. C'était d'une tristesse. Tu sais, c'est jamais des bonnes nouvelles. Mais quand tu dis ça, ça aurait pu arriver. Là.
Oh, yeah.
Puis à quel moment... Fait que là, à ce moment-là, vous ne faisiez pas de commercial? C'était juste rénovation, projet résidentiel?
We haven't necessarily... change the kind of work we did. So we do everything from we're a service-based company, but we do service in residential, a dripping faucet in bungalow in Hochelaga Maisonneuve, up to boiler room replacement for high-rise condo tower, to a DAR replacement in a mall, and almost everything in between. Commercial, industrial, institutional, and residential is the basis of what we built our foundation on. But we really started to jump a little bit more into commercial after my dad and uncle bought Outremont Plumbing in 1997. So it was a couple of years ago, but that was really when we jumped more into the commercial side. But we don't touch new construction. We don't touch new development. It's a different beast. It's a completely different animal. And not saying we're better or worse. We just train our guys completely differently. So we're going to get into client experience and excellence and service. And it's, if that's how we're training our guys, they can't be on a chantier producing the way that a construction job needs to produce. Where we train them to think too much in advance and to think about the long-term well-being of the client to be able to just run 200 feet of pipe and go. Just that, our guys can't do it. We tried once. We tried to go into it once, and it turns out our plumber, without us realizing it or knowing, we found out a couple of weeks in that he kept calling a job site meeting every morning himself, which, as you know, the plumber shouldn't be the one calling the job site meetings. It should be issues that are brought up to the general contractor foreman to make those decisions. Instead, he involved everybody. And it turns out that we did not make as much money as we could or should have on that job, and realized that it's not our niche.
Yeah.
And it's not what we do well.
That's two complete different story. Quand il y en a qui font des projets privés puis des projets publics, deux façons de gérer complètement différentes. J'avais un avocat il y a 2 semaines au podcast, puis il disait, quand tu fais des projets publics, la réclamation fait partie de ton business case. Tu as besoin d'un avocat ou d'un consultant avocat qui va t'aider dans tes projets publics. Puis là, je dis, hey, c'est fou pareil, mais il dit, Benoît, tous les projets ont des réclamations dans le public. Là, j'étais comme... Fait qu'il dit, quand je vois des contracteurs qui n'ont jamais fait de public s'en aller dans le public, là, on le voit, là, il y a eu comme un petit changement de les projets privés, il y en avait un petit peu moins. Fait que là, j'ai beaucoup de nouveaux plombiers dans le, dans le public. Puis, j'étais avec une personne de la SQI, puis là, tu sais, je discutais, puis là, il dit, tu sais, Bruno, présentement, là, c'est la pire période des projets publics parce qu'il y a plein de nouveaux joueurs, new contractors, puis c'est très difficile à gérer de notre côté. Mm-hmm. Fait que, versus quand aussi, tu sais, fait que là, quand on parlait de services, nouveaux projets, j'ai un ami de pure plomberie, Benoît. Fait que là, tu sais, Benoît puis Charles-Alexis, puis tu sais, eux, ils me disent, tu sais, on est capable de faire des projets, mais nouveaux, c'est pas ça. Puis là, je dis, mais vous savez que ça, ce que vous faites, là, tu le sais, là, Ben, avec le service, il y a des grosses compagnies qui ont 3 trucks de service. Ils ont 200 personnes qui travaillent pour eux, mais ils ont 3 trucks de service qui font du service call. Puis là, tu te dis, t'es déjà avec des clients. Mm-hmm. Puis, tu sais, la plomberie que tu as faite v'là 2 ans ou v'là 5 ans, dans le commercial, il va falloir recommencer, il va y avoir des changements. Tu dis, ouais, mais on n'est pas guéri pour ça.
No, it's a different mindset, too. Service is a completely different mindset. And like I said, not one is better than the other, but to be able to make people feel that you're taking care of them and you build a relationship. Construction companies are looking after the job, the contract, the dollars at the bottom, but I don't look at a call as a sale. I look at it as an opportunity to use our expertise to help. It's to build and strengthen relationship. I ask people to make me a partner with them in looking after their building or their home. I said, okay, if you want to make me a partner, I'm more than willing. But in essence, bring me on in decision making. Let me help you make long-term decisions. We have customers that are with us for 2-3 generations, and there are some commercial clients of ours that are with us for 3rd generations now.
Ça doit être c'est la plus belle récompense, là.
Yeah, really. I have a horseshoe in my office, and the reason for it, we had a plumber who worked for us for 53 years. I grew up, I called him Grand-Père. He called me Arthur. Arthur was my great uncle, and because he worked with him with 2 generations before he had remembered. And so it was this one client that when he renovated, Robert was also a cowboy. He had a farm. He had horses. He was in the rodeo in Saint, I remember as a kid. I went to go see him once. He used to take me riding on his horses when I was little. But when he renovated this person's grandmother's apartment on St. Urban, he gave her one of her horseshoes. He gave her one of his horseshoes. Then he renovated her daughter on the top floor. He gave her another horseshoe. When the grandmother had passed away on the ground floor, and they called me in, and at that time I was a project manager. I was looking after her project with her, and she said, "I'm bringing my horseshoe down from upstairs. Please take this." So it was a horseshoe that my plumber, who I grew up with, had given her mother, and now her daughter is moving upstairs, and she handed me this horseshoe that has so much history to me and my company. It's now above my door in my office.
Wow!
Yeah.
Ça, c'est une belle récompense, Ben. Mais tu sais, on n'a pas parlé pourquoi je t'avais invité au podcast. D'habitude, je commence avec ça, mais parce que là, je viens de voir le temps. On va prendre une petite pause, mais tu sais, quand les Clémentine puis Nick, quand ils m'ont demandé de, tu sais, c'est qui que je recevais aujourd'hui, je dis, je reçois les personnes les plus généreuses du monde de la construction. Ah ouais? Puis là, comme je dis ça, t'arrives, donne une bouteille, Sherry Ann m'a fait des biscuits, là, je suis comme, wow! Tout ça, mais tu sais, tu racontes ça. Tu sais, tout ça, c'est à cause que, tu sais, vous avez des valeurs, un respect envers, tu sais, quand tu me parles, tu parles pas d'un client. Tu m'as jamais mentionné le mot client, tu m'as parlé tout le temps de partner. Yeah. Ils sont avec nous, partner, les générations, tout ça, mais ça... Tu sais, moi, c'est la première chose qui m'a marqué. Quand on s'est rencontrés, la première chose qui m'a marqué, j'ai fait hey, vous êtes, tu sais, moi, je dis, c'est tellement pur, tu sais, il y a rien, c'est pas un setup, là. Tu sais, votre vie est basée là-dessus. Tu sais, vous êtes des personnes qui redonnent. Fait que, tu sais, mon père disait tout le temps, tu sais, commence pas à calculer combien d'argent. Non. Ça, là, l'argent, là, c'est un résultat.
Yeah.
Puis, tu sais, ça fait 1 heure, là, Ben, qu'on parle. Tu m'as pas parlé une fois d'argent. Tu m'as parlé de relations, tu m'as parlé de la générosité de chacune des personnes. Puis c'est ça qui est beau, Ben, dans cette histoire-là. C'est comme vraiment incroyable.
So one of the things that my father always said to me, take care of your people.
They will take care of you.
They will... And the money will come.
Yeah.
I said to him, who are my people? He said, anyone who is affected by you and the company. So now I know that the word is a stakeholder. It's any stakeholder. Take care of the stakeholders and the money will come. It's a byproduct, like you said. It can't be the goal. If it's the goal, then I'm doing it wrong. Then I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah. Je pense, Ben, on va s'arrêter sur ça. C'est pour la première partie de l'épisode. Ça ne peut pas être plus
I don't even feel we got started.
Yeah, I know. Comme je t'avais dit,
I think I'm on question 1
exact,
that you had asked.
Exact. Je vais juste prendre deux minutes. À la fin de chacun des podcasts, je remercie toute ma gang. Fait que j'aimerais remercier Nick, Fred, Pierre. Merci les boys de me permettre de faire ça. J'adore faire ça. Puis je pense que les auditeurs aiment ça. Évidemment, le marketing du podcast se fait pas tout seul. On va en parler dans la deuxième partie avec Sherry-Ann. Mais j'aimerais remercier Anto, Mylène, Diane de mettre en place le podcast ici. J'aimerais remercier tous les gens du studio SF. Nicole, on tape la 80e, je ne sais plus laquelle épisode, mais j'ai commencé avec Nick, là, quand Nick était assis dans la salle avec nous, puis on n'avait pas le studio comme ça, fait que c'est incroyable. J'aimerais remercier aussi mes commanditaires, Delta, Watts, Bugatti, La Joie, oui, il faut montrer. Mais merci Ben pour t'avoir confié. On va faire la deuxième partie de la suite de l'entrevue. Puis pour les auditeurs, on se voit la semaine prochaine avec la suite de l'entrevue de Ben Levine, de Levine Bro. Merci, à la semaine prochaine.
Merci.